In today's video, we'll be learning how to use the Growing Up Morphs product to make the best use of the characters in your content library. We'll also be learning what each parameter does, how to resolve issues with hair, and what you can create when you push past the limits of this product. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Palmy and I created this channel to help you to master Daz Studio so you can create your dream renders. In today's tutorial, we're going to be doing another product review. This time it's of the Growing Up bundle here, the Growing Up Morphs bundle, which I use, which is like a key product you should have in your content library because it allows you to do so much more with the characters you currently have in your content library, making the best use of that content library. Just want to show you here very quickly that I use this in my graphic novel, Tiger Dragon Rebirth. This character here, Tatsu here, he's a character. What I did is use this product here, Growing Up bundle here, taken the adult version of this character, de-aged him using the Growing Up Morphs here, so I can use him in my graphic novel, create a story with him in my graphic novel, Tiger Dragon the Rebirth. If that's something you're interested in, Tiger Dragon Rebirth, reading superhero stories, reading the mythological stories done in a unique way, link in the description down below for that. Let's move on with the tutorial here. So we're going to be specifically looking at the Growing Up Morphs for the female because there are a few extra options that the females have that the males don't have. So I want to cover that in this tutorial. There is also another bundle here, just want to make it clear, for Genesis 3. So if you use a Genesis 3, there is that available as well. It covers, this tutorial will cover that as well. So anything that I go through, it will cover those options because those options are exactly the same for Genesis 8 bundle and the Genesis 3 bundle as well. So we're going to be focusing on the Genesis 8 female because we've got an extra few options and I want to cover those in this tutorial. One of the questions you might be asking right off the bat is, Palmy, why should I care about the Growing Up Morphs product? How is this going to help me? Well, the biggest problem that product solves is that you can take the existing character you have in your content library and morph it in 4 different ways. You can create a older teen version of the character, you can create a younger teen version of the character, you can create a 9 to 10-year-old version of the character, and you can create a 5 to 6-year-old version of a character. So that's 4 different ways you can change that character the way it looks. And that's 4 different ways of making effective use of that current character you have in your Daz content library. That's absolutely amazing, right? Just buying that one product, Growing Up Morphs, gives you 4 different options to make the best use of that current character you have in your Daz Studio library. The second thing I would say is if you're creating some sort of graphic novel, visual narrative like I am creating a graphic novel, my stories are all family based. The stories that I grew up as a kid watching beautiful family stories in the 80s and 90s. That's what I want to recreate. That's what I'm trying to create as well with Tiger Dragon Rebirth. So I'm going to have those family oriented stories where you have parents, you have kids, the kids get older and they surpass their parents, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about the children learning from the parents and surpassing their parents, because that's what every parent wants for the child, is for them to surpass where they are. And that's what I'm trying to do in the stories as well as the mythological side, as well as the hero's journey, all in there. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So consider that for an option for purchasing the Growing Up Morphs product. And finally, I do want to say that the majority of the characters in the DAZSTUDIO store are adult characters, meaning they are adult versions of male and female. Like the majority, as in, I would give a crazy figure of 98%, but it's probably more than that, I reckon, are adult characters, meaning that these characters, you're stuck with them, right? Once you buy the adult character, that is it. They're in that form. You cannot make them younger without the Growing Up Morphs product. So that's something to consider. And just to prove my point, as of recording of this tutorial, the new Daz original character that just was created or was released recently is this one here. Lian 8.1 was just released recently, Daz original. And what is this character? It is a adult female character. So if you buy this character or consider purchasing it, you're stuck with that character, right? And then with the Growing Up Morphs, you can actually modify that character to some extent and create something unique. So consider that as well, that the majority of the characters in the Daz store are adult characters. There are some teenage characters, there are some child characters, but those are few or far between. So something worth considering. Like I said, give you 3 options there, why this product is for you. And now we are going to jump into Daz Studio and show you how this product actually works inside Daz Studio. So here we are inside Daz Studio. I'm specifically using Grace 8.1 female character here because I want to show you that the Genesis 8 version of the Growing Up Morphs does work on 8.1 characters. So if you have the Growing Up Morphs for Genesis 8 male, it will work on 8.1 male characters. If you have it for Genesis 8 female, it'll work for Genesis 8.1 female characters as well. So where can you find this product? Very easy place to find this product. Make sure you select your character in the scene tab first. Go to smart content here, click on that, and then go on products here, this tab here, all products. And what I'm going to do, because I've got so many products in here, I'm going to click here where it says entity text filter, so I can search for it and just type in growing, and it will come up here. Double click to this, to that product icon, and then click on shaping, which gives me all the options, gives me all the shapes, gives me all the options for everything, which I'll go through briefly. The other place where you can find it, where you can find the actual sliders like these here, these are the sliders here, which will give you more control, which is what we want, gives you more control, which is great, is you can click on the, what you want to do is collapse the general here. You want to click on, in the parameters tab, sorry, you want to go and make sure you have, you're actually in your character here, so your character here, the name of your character. Click on actor here, the tab here, expand that. You want to go down to where it says full body, and go down a bit more where it says real world, expand that. And then as you can see, I've got loads and loads of morphs, but as you go down, there's the growing up morphs, and here are all those sliders. So we're going to go through these sliders as well. I thought I would show you these sliders as well. As we change these options here, you'll see these changes as well. So you can see the actual changes these sliders are making with these preset options here. So what I've got is I've got a reference character here on the left, and we're going to change this one on the right just to show you how different it looks from the actual adult version that comes with Daz Studio, the differences that we have. So let's start with the first one, which is age 5 to 6. What does that do, right? So when we double click that preset option there, it's going to de-age our character to roughly the age of 5 to 6 year old. So you can see the difference here. If I swing the camera around in terms of height, you can notice a few things here. So obviously the clothing has gone down, right? The clothing has deformed as well, which is great. However, the hair is deformed as well. However, there's some issues with the hair, which is something we'll cover later on in this tutorial. You will find issues with the hair. Not all hair is going to morph down correctly when you choose specific ages. And here on the right, you can see the different options that are activating when you choose this preset 5 to 6. So you can clearly see what options are activated in this preset. So let's do 9 to 10. And see what changes this makes. So you can see a roughly 9 to 10 year old. That's what Grace would look like as a 9 to 10 year old little girl. That is what she look like roughly, right? And you can see like the hair seems to be working a bit better now with that and everything else there. So that's fantastic. Then we got young teen. So as a young teenager, 13, 14 year old, 15 years old, something like that. That's how she would look roughly as a young teen. There you go. So again, you can see the sliders here, the actual changes that are being made. Older teen, which is going to be like 17, 18 years old. There we go. Okay. And then we've got the adult. Now this adult version here is actually slightly different. You'll see when I apply it to the actual adult version that we have that comes with Daz Studio. You can see the height, you can see the changes. Youth head proportion is 80%. Youth proportions adjust is 80% as well. So it's slight difference with the height there, and slight difference with the face. It's almost negligible. You can't really tell. But if that's something you wanted to use as a kind of like base, that's great. So what I would do as a starting point is to really use these presets, right? So go through the presets, find a preset that you like, and then use that as your baseline, and then move on to the sliders, which I'm going to cover now. So kind of your workflow will be like, let me choose, the way I do it is I would choose an age. So generally I choose like young teen or 9 to 10 for that character Tatsu that we had, that I showed you earlier on in this tutorial. And then I move to here to the sliders here, which I'm going to go through now and what exactly changes with this. So what I'm going to do is choose 9 to 10, because that's what I did for my character Tatsu. He's roughly 9 to 10 years old. I think he's actually a young teen. Let me just change that there. Before we look at the parameters of the Growing Up Morphs product, just want to go over some of the other presets that are shown here. So the presets with this, where it says shape, are tagged shape minus shape. That's just 0. That will just 0 all of these parameters here for the Growing Up Morphs. So when I double click this for my character Grace now, it'll just basically do it all for me. And that's a preset just to put everything back to its original setting. So if I move it back to young teen now, We've got the same here as well, where we've got the 0 age, 0 breast, 0 head proportions. All these will just remove it. So for example, we've got youth morph here, 0 age. Here it is, right? If I do 0 age, it'll get rid of that youth morph. There you go. Let's put it to 0. There you go. But we've still got the rest of the options here. Youth head proportion is at 30. Youth posture is at 50. Youth proportion just is at 20%. So this just is a preset for you to get rid of those particular sections that you want to get rid of, those particular parameters that cover all these as well. So that's just going briefly into those settings. So now let's move on to the sliders and show you exactly what that does. So the head neutralizer neutralizes the head morph. So if I zoom in here on this character here, you'll see the one we are affecting. The head neutralizer, you'll see that it goes to the original face here on the left. Okay, so it neutralizes that head morph there that is applied when you apply the growing up morphs here. So you can see, we can literally go back to like a chubby face, like a 5 to 6 year old. So it goes through the range, right? It goes through the range of from a 5 to 6 year old face to a adult face, right? And you can choose if you want to neutralize that morph or choose something else, which is great. Gives you a bit more options, a bit more control over how you want the face to appear. So it looks slightly different and doesn't look exactly the way as the character looks, which is good. Gives you more control. So that's the head neutralizer. The nose neutralizer, what that does, it kind of changes the morph of the nose. So as I increase this, you'll see the nose kind of change a bit. So as we grow up, our nose that we had when we were 5 to 6 year old, 10 year old, 9 year old, 10 year old, 13 year old changes, right? As we age, it changes. So sometimes you might want to change that, right? You might want to change the nose here so it looks different. So if you look at this character here and the character of here, the nose looks different now. If I just put the neutralizer nose back to normal, it's the same, right? The nose is the same as that one there. So that gives you a bit more control over the nose. All right, youth head proportion is basically the size of the head. So we can change the size of the head here. As I go negative, it gets bigger. As I go positive, it gets smaller. So this is the proportion of the head. So as you are moving your character through these age ranges here, these presets, the proportion of the head will change according to these presets. So that gives you control over the size of the head. So youth head width, quite self-explanatory. It just increases the head of the width of the head. So as we increase it, the width decreases. As we go to the negative value, it makes it more wider, right? Makes it more, how can you say, makes it more defined, shall we say. It gives you more harder edges, shall we say. With the youth width here, it kind of gets you more softer, right? So you get more softer rounder curves here. And then when you do negative here, you get more like sharper edges, so to speak. So that again gives you more control over the head width there. So youth morph is exactly what it says on the tin, which is basically the age, right? So if I increase it, it's going to go to that 5 to 6 year old. If I decrease it, it's going to take me back to the adult version of my character. So that's what the youth morph does there. It just literally gives you full control over what age you want. So let's say you wanted, well, I want that kind of height, right? What kind of character height do I want? So this actually helps with the height. So let's say you wanted something that was slightly smaller than the average character here. You can use this to do it, and everything, use this slider, the youth morph, to change everything regarding that. So regarding everything to do with that character. So everything fits accordingly. Youth posture. So if I turn my character around here, you'll see the posture here of the character. When I turn the youth posture to 100%, you'll see more standing up straight. So when you're younger, your posture is generally better. It's more straight, more upright. Gravity has taken less toll on you. Depending on how much time you spend on your phone as well, that would affect your posture as well. Hunched over, like hunchback. So obviously as you age, as you work out, your posture will change, right? So generally your posture is pretty flat, right, in terms of pretty standing up straight. So that gives you control over that function there. It is minute details, but all these minute details do add up, especially if you're trying to do realism. If you're going to that realism area, these little things do add up, believe it or not. So youth proportion adjust here, this slider here, this controls the limb length, the leg length. So as I increase it, it reduces the length of the limbs of the leg. And if I decrease it, it makes it bigger, right? Makes it slightly bigger, right? Very, very small, kind of reduces the leg length. So it makes the head slightly bigger as well. So it kind of works in conjunction with that. So it's kind of this torso area from the hips down and kind of the head here. That's why it's controlling, gives you a bit more control. So let's say you wanted like slightly shorter legs for this character, or slightly midriff area here where the torso is, where the hip is, sorry. That's what that does. The youth shape adjust controls the hips and the legs. So if I increase this specifically controls like the thickness almost. So it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle, but you can see there as I go to the positive, it kind of gives you that, it brings in the hips a bit more, and if I go negative, it brings it out. So that is something you can play with as well. Youth shape narrow. So this is going to do the width of the character. As I increase it, the shape of the character gets thinner, almost like gets squashed. And if I go negative, it gets a bit thicker, right? The kind of shoulder, if you look at the shoulders here, you can see it. The shoulders here are slightly smaller. And then when you decrease, the shoulders get a bit wider and everything else gets a bit wider. So that's something to play around with as well, something to discover. Youth weight sounds exactly what it is. It's basically the weight of your character, right? As I increase it, my character gets a bit thicker, shall we say, puts on weight, right? So the stomach comes out a bit more meat on the bone, shall we say. And then as I go to negative, gets thinner, right? So loses that meat on the bone, shall we say. So that's something to play around as well. Obviously depends on what characters you're creating. Some children are a bit bonier, right? Have bigger mass, shall we say, and some children are thin, right? So you can play around with this to get the kind of shape you desire for your character. So we're moving on to the next part, which is GU clothing support. So this basically is to do with the chest and the clothing here. So what this does is it kind of controls this middle proportion here of the chest here. So if it works the same for males as well. So basically for males, it does the same, but obviously it controls like the lower from the groin area as well. So it kind of goes from the chest here for the males all the way down to the groin area here. And what that does, it gives you control over the clothing here a bit, so it conforms correctly to those particular areas, the chest, and then obviously the groin for the males as well. Something to play around with if you're finding that some clothing is not conforming as well. Something to just have a look into. That's what that clothing support slider does there. So all these options here, from the head neutralizer all the way to GU clothing, are in the Genesis 8 male and Genesis 3 male growing up morphs. All these sliders are exactly the same. Now these sliders here, the youth breast 1, youth breast 2, youth breast 3, and the youth chest adjustment, are all for females only. So Genesis 3 females growing up bundle, Genesis 8 female growing up bundle will only be on those. That's why I'm showing you this in this tutorial. So basically this gives you control over the breasts here. So obviously you can move them up and down depending on what you want to do. Basically gives you full control. You can make them bigger, smaller. You can, move them up and down, whatever you want to do, right? Chest adjustment, you can bring it in if you want to, right? You've got full control over that, because obviously when you're a child, 5 to 6 year old, 9 to 10 year old, every female character, every female person, shall we say rather, develops differently, right? Some children, some teenagers, right? When you're teenagers, they hit puberty quicker. Some children don't hit puberty quicker, right? They get later on in their lives, they hit puberty, and therefore their body changes effectively. So that is just taking into account of that. So that gives you full control over that as well. So one of the first problems you will have is with hair. When you're using this Growing Up Morphs product and you're de-aging characters, 5, 6 year old, 9, 10 year old, even young teen, maybe older teen, the hair will not always conform correctly. You'll have to do some manual changes, right? You'll have to use the manual changes, or you'll have to use the morphs within the hair to make sure that the hair fits this character. It is unrealistic or nigh impossible to have every character with every configuration, with every different type of hair to work with this morph, right? Otherwise this morph will never be released. So the morph does the best it can, this Growing Up Morphs, and it does a very good job, but it's up to you as an artist to use the skills you have to make this hair work for whatever you're trying to do with it. In this example, I've got my character, the same one, Grace 8.1. I've de-aged her to 5 to 6 year old. And this is the El Sino hair I'm using here as an example. So as I'm zooming here, you can see that the hair is not conformed correctly. It's poking here through here. And on the back, we have a huge issue there. And the hair here as well is kind of like basically not conforming correctly there as well. So one of the first things I would ask you to do is look at the morphs. If a hair comes with a morph, use the morphs. So in my testing, I've already tried some of the morphs and they don't work right. They don't allow me to do what I want to do. We need to think at a higher level, and that's thinking about the advanced options that we have. So one of the things we can do is, we got an obvious problem here at the back here. I need to increase the size of this hair here. So one of the things I can do is I can go to, with the hair selected, I can go to this option here, just above the parameters, preferences, and show hidden properties, right? So when I click on show hidden properties and click on the Elsinore hair, you'll see all these grayed out options. These are all the options that the person who created, the vendor who created the Elsinore hair, hid, right? They didn't want you to have access to the options whatsoever. Now we've got more options. Now we can actually change all the settings. And one of the things I would look at first is, if you look at head here and people, you can see the people that are hidden, right? The people morphs, to allow this hair to work. So at the moment it's using the Grace head morph 100% for this hair to work. Now obviously that's not enough, because if it was, then it would have worked, right? We wouldn't have this poking issue here. We could increase this, right? So let me decrease this. Let me decrease this so I can get this on. And as you can see, we're getting some more issues here with the poking here of the hair, and that looks a bit better, right? So that looks a bit more better. It's come out a bit at the front. So we could play with these morphs here, these head morphs here, to kind of get the right kind of option here. We can literally, it's discovery, folks. That's all I'm going to say to you here. It's all about discovery. It's all about seeing what works, what doesn't, how you want the hair to look. There's so many ways to get this fixed. It's unbelievable. Right, we're just going to play with these kind of like people morphs that are hidden so we can get the hair to work. So again, I'm going to do this very quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but that is one way, right? So let's do a quick IRA preview of that. How does that look, right? How does that look in terms of just showing the advanced options, going through to the peoples, and then changing it, right? It doesn't look too bad, right? Let's turn around. We've kind of sorted out our problem at the back here a little bit. There's still some issues here at the back as well. Not too bad, right? That's not too bad. So again, play with these extra options, these morphs that are hidden, to get your desired effect. Now, the third thing you can do is, once you've kind of played with these effects, you've played with the morphs here, these hidden morphs, and you still can't get it perfect, right? You've got it pretty good like this, say for example, and you want to fix these other issues that you're having here with the poking on the side here, for example, through here, like the hairline and the kind of side here. What we can do is go into the hair here. We can click on general, and we can go to mesh smoothing. Now, one of the things you can do is collision iterations. With this collision iterations, what this does, it kind of moves the hair a few like iterations away from the collision item. So at the moment, our collision item is Grace, right? So the actual geometry of Grace is that collision item. So when we increase the iterations, what happens is it will start moving away a little bit from the geometry of Grace 8.1. And you have to be very mindful with collision iterations. You don't want to go too high, right? You don't want to go something like 50, because if you do, it's going to, depending on your machine, it's going to do the calculations, and it's going to take a long time for that to show the calculations. So it really depends on your machine. For what I would do with collision iterations is just start very low. So very low value of like 5, just start very low. You'll see at the bottom here, look, it's doing the calculations, done it very quickly there. And you can see it's kind of fixed a few of the problems here, right? It's kind of, that poking is kind of gone here. That poking at the top is kind of gone. And here on the side, and you'll notice at the back, it's kind of gone as well. So it's kind of fixed it at 5. Now, if I wanted to go to something crazy like 20, I could. Okay, you can see at the bottom here, look, it's doing the calculations. It's thinking about it. Okay, so be very mindful the higher you go as well, the longer it will take. So let's see what that looks like with the iterations on, as well as our morphs that we added. All right, it looks pretty good. You can see now that the hair is kind of like moved away from the character. You can see like there's a bit of shadow here. So maybe 20 is too much, right? So maybe 5 was okay. All right, maybe 5 was okay. There we go, right? So that doesn't look too bad, and we still have that problem in the back. I believe that has to do with the hair cap maybe. So again, I would go into the morphs and fix that, and I would go into the morphs and fix the way the hair looks here, the morphs that came with this hair. But that's something you can look into, right? That's something you can discover. Again, I'm giving you 2 options here on how to fix that issue you have with the hair when you're de-aging your characters to 5 to 6 year old to 9 to 10 year old. Something to think about when you are having issues with your hair. Something to try and at least make that hair usable for the character you're trying to create. Now, the second issue that I have with this growing up morphs is basically to do with the shape of the head. So when you're like 5 to 6 year old, 9 to 10 year old age here, when I remove this hair, the Elsinore hair, to me, the head here looks far too big, right? It looks just too big. Look at the shape of that head. The cranium here is too big. It just looks too big to me. And what I do is I use another product called the 200 head morphs product to change the cranium, right? To reduce that cranium so it looks a bit more better, right? It looks a bit more, because that just looks too big to me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but to me, that looks too big. And I feel that affects the way it looks on the character. So when the hair goes on the character, that affects it as well. So what I do is I go to in parameters of my character, I expand that, and I go all the way to actor, go to head, which is over here. I expand that. I go to real world because the real world morph 200 plus, here it is, and I get this cranium, right? And now I can change the height, so I can say, hey, actually the cranium's a bit too big, something like that. Now it's very subtle, you don't want to go crazy, obviously. Cranium size smaller a bit maybe, right? Something like that. Maybe that should be a bit there, and maybe the cranium the cranium back, flatten that a bit as well, right? So something like that looks a bit more realistic. That's just me, right? That's just my kind of like OCD kicking in. I just think it looks too big in terms of the head there. Maybe that could do with a bit more work, but that's something to consider as well. I believe it does affect the hair. So when you put the hair on, right, it does affect the way the hair looks, as you can see now, because we reduced the cranium. The hair conforms to that cranium that we just did with the 200 morphs. So something to consider as well when you are creating your character and you want the hair to fit a bit better. Something to look at to the cranium of the hair. That's just something I did with my character Tatsu as well. I went in and I said, hey, that cranium looks too high. I'm going to change that cranium down. Then I'm going to apply the hair. And now it looks better, right? It looks better on my character. Something to consider when you're creating your characters, especially when you create like teenage characters. It's something that will affect the way the hair conforms to the character. Something I do recommend with the Growing Up Morphs product is to not just do what everybody else does. Think outside the box, right? Most people will take a character and de-age it. 5, 6 year old, 9, 10 year old, teenager, whatever, right? Everybody does that. That is normal. That's absolutely fine. However, I want you to think outside the box, and this is exactly what I did with this character here on the right. I've created something crazy just using the Growing Up Morphs that come with that product, right? I haven't used any other morphs with this product. All I've done with this product, I've just used that. I've just used the skills I've showed you in this tutorial regarding the hair, how to change it, how to move it, do all that kind of cool stuff. And that's what I managed to create something strange, right? Something unique, something nobody else would make because it doesn't make sense, okay? And when something doesn't make sense, you've got to try it, right? So there are going to be a few issues with this when you are when you're using a product that's not designed, that is what should be used for. You're going to get issues. So one of the main issues will be the hair. The hair will not conform. You'll have to use the options, advanced options, to sort that out. When it comes to the posing, not every pose will conform correctly because obviously our character here is in a strange morph. So not every pose will not every pose will work correctly. You'll have to adjust those manually. And not every clothing will conform correctly. And not every expression will work. So you've got to take those into consideration. We are working with beyond the limitations of this product, and when we push past those boundaries, you're going to get issues, and expect those issues, and you should expect yourself to go and surpass those limitations, right? You should be able to work around those limitations. That's what this is all about. So we're pushing those boundaries. Now, if you're interested in how I created this character, the specifics I went into, everything, that is available in the membership platform. So when you go to YouTube and you click join, you can access that tutorial, which I go into great depth on how I created this character, what I did, all the options and everything. that's there for you if you're interested in delving deeper. A quick shout out to YouTube member 044 who decided to join my membership. Thank you very much for that. You've got access to some great content in there that's going to help you to delve deeper into mastery of Daz Studio so you can create your dream renders. Thank you very much for that. That's a shout out for you, my friend. Thank you very much. Also, don't forget to go onto the link description down below as well for this. You can read 24 pages of Untitled Dragon the Rebirth, chapter 1 for free. It's a great story, a superhero story, mythological story. It is a positive story, right? Not many positive stories out there. When you read it, you're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel like you can achieve your grand ambitions. That's why it's all about empowering stories to help you to achieve your grand ambitions. That's the stories I'm making for you so you can achieve your grand ambitions. No negativity what's in this whatsoever. It's all about you're the hero. You see yourself as a hero. You're going to go and achieve your goals and dreams because that's what heroes do. Heroes go and actually do what most people don't do, and that is achieve their goals and dreams. They do what is necessary to achieve their goals and dreams, and that's what this story is going to help you to do. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more great videos that are going to help you on your journey to master Daz Studio. Also, don't forget to leave a comment down below if you have any insights regarding this product. If you think I've covered something wrong, if you want to answer that, please put it in there. We're all here to learn on this community. We're all here to master Daz Studio. And the way this community works is that you add, right? You add to the community, you help somebody else by putting your comments there, get them to think about something differently, which is absolutely amazing. And that's how we grow together, because that's what this community is all about. It's all about growing together, improving, actually mastering our craft and achieving our goals and dreams. And until next week's video, if you want to live your dream life, my friends, commit to mastery.